Hello, dear students. My name is Alexey Kalmykov. I'm professor of Kharkiv National Medical University, the Department of Internal and Occupational Diseases, and now we meet with you in the course of occupational diseases. Last lecture, I asked you to in turn ask your questions in the feedback form, and some of you did this, and we have collected your questions. So let us look through them and then continue with the lecture. Some of you ask how to we measure the quality of air in a working area to check for like iron, silicate, and so on to ensure a safe working environment. Good. First of all, I must say that how do we measure? It's a question mostly to hygienic profile of the discipline of and specialist. I'm medical doctor, right? So I do not measure by myself, but I have general ideas. There is a special equipment with ventilator with a fan, right? And it measures the quantity of some condensed particles in a appropriate volume of air. Other equipment conducts the analysis, chemical analysis of the substances present in these particles, and basing on this we can make a final decision of what exact composition of substances of dust is present in the air and about the concentration of them. It's in general. If you need more detailed explanation, contact me directly by email, and either I would help or I connect you with the specialist in labor hygiene, industrial hygiene. How do I know what is considered as an occupational disease? It's a good and fundamental question. We state some disease as occupational if we prove the occupational origin, the occupational etiology of its cause. In other words, if you manage to prove I don't know, some fracture or bone fracture, I mean, or maybe a chronic bronchitis or some intoxication with occupational origin, occupational reason, cause, this might be stated as occupational. Whether it is chronic disease, chronic condition which develops gradually during prolonged period of time, or it is a result of some accident. It might be also so. How is this related to public health? And with the knowledge of this subject, shouldn't some occupations be stopped because of the health hazards that could happen? I will start the answer from the end of the question. Should some occupations be stopped? Of course, many occupations either have been already stopped or they are about to be stopped. While if they are necessary for our life, for the production of something and so on, this might be replaced with something, with automatization or with robots or with somehow. How this led to public health. It's occupational diseases subject and in general direction in medicine directly corresponds to public health aspects of healthcare, at least because of the fact that almost all, or maybe definitely all people, all adult people work more or less, well, maybe with some few exceptions, and they occupationally undergo influence of some hazards. Taking this into account is essential for public health professional, because depending on the occupation, depending on the exact working conditions, depending on legislation in appropriate country, depending on social services activity, depending on many things, this directly is reflected on the morbidity, mortality, and other parameters, which is the point of interest of public health. And people work in average from 18 to 60 years, so it's a very prolonged period of time. And all these people, it seems to be most of people on the earth are at risk of some occupational diseases. This, of course, should be taken into account. How can we prevent occupational diseases? There are different approaches, so it's a very big question. So, in order to try to answer it in brief, I must say that first of all, from medical point of view, the prevention of occupational disease may correspond to primary prevention when we do our best to prevent some person be employed if he has some background disease or just predisposition to occupational disease. And we simply recommend, we cannot, in the majority of cases, we cannot force him not to work. Maybe with exception of work in dangerous conditions, dangerous for other people responsible. And we can prevent the development by primary detection of predisposition. Then, second medical approach again, it's early detection of the earliest changes in the organism in case of occupational disease. Not even disease, but pre-disease, some initial changes before disease develops. The earlier we diagnose this condition, more we can do for this person, and may even cause full recovery of him. A part of medical approach, there are multiple other, such as technological, social, psychological, political, no, many approaches. Robotization, automatization, economical or financial compensation, general politics in the region or in the country, with maybe forcing of some industries and limitation of others. So there are many and many approaches. This is also a question of some specific discussion. If you need, contact me directly by email. You have my email in all invitations you receive from me. How do we measure the quality of air in the working area? We had already the question. Anemia and occupational disease. Anemia and occupational disease. Anemia may develop as a result of influence of ionizing electromagnetic fields or radiation, then intoxication with aromatic hydrocarbons. Different kinds of anemia may develop in case of influence of amine and nitric compounds of aromatic hydrocarbons, of carbon monoxide, of arsenic compounds. Mm. And intoxication with lead, mostly. These I have listed the diseases most closely related to possible development of anemia. The rest is optional. What are the measures of helping patient by the government? Helping patient by the government. If the patient, maybe the question corresponds to occupational disease, right? So in case of occupational disease, there could be one-time compensation from governmental or non-governmental funds. Then they could be continuous compensation, monthly or quarter year or annually. Then there could be lifetime follow-up, medical follow-up of such a person. paid by governments or maybe not. It depends, you see, on legislation in each certain country. But in general, I have listed the main approaches. What can the diseases what can be the disease acquired by doctors at work except for infections such as COVID? Except for different infections, of course. Then they could be due to physical overstraining, I mean unfavorable posture, due to mental overstraining, I mean psychological distress, due to overstraining of visual analyzer. They could be property diseases. Then they could be ionizing and non-ionizing electromagnetic fields, radiation influence. They could be organizational aspects or peculiarities of the work, I mean time regimen and so on in medical personnel, night shifts and so on, and appropriate again diseases. Many of medical personnel medics may undergo same working conditions as other workers if they conduct their work in these conditions, and so on. So it's hard to answer this question in brief, and we have a special chapter in our textbook dedicated to occupational pathology of medical personnel. I'd like you to refer to the book or directly contact me and we'll discuss. Contact me by email. Are there currently any measures being taken for the prevention of occupational disease, since the most effective way of prevention is abstinence? We have discussed prevention measures. Yes, of course, the best is avoiding influence, but there are multiple others. The teachers cooperate mail. Again, if you still do not have email of your teacher and it's urgent for you, contact me. You have my email in every invitation and I'll help you. What is the most common occupational health disease? Okay, maybe traumas, occupational traumas. It's not a disease, but it's a group of diseases, but there are multiple. And maybe chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, maybe, and chronic bronchitis. In extreme stage of asthma, what medication doesn't correspond to occupational disease? It corresponds, but it's a specific question we'll discuss if needed directly. Sorry, may I ask for pictures? How many diseases will we study? About the tongue, it's not clear for me. Ask me in email. What did you mean? How many diseases will we study? Basically, I advise you to clearly know two occupational diseases. Maybe not two, but one is group of diseases and one other is just a long-standing disease. First is pneumoconiosis, because there is plenty of them, right? Silicosis, silicatosis, and inside silicatosis there are asbestosis, talicosis, and so on. Then in vibration disease. So pneumoconiosis and vibration disease is the minimum required for occupational disease. And we are going to study about 20 and even more diseases with you. Some of them might be you might also study in other departments, other subjects, while these two, pneumoconiosis and vibration disease, are specifically and absolutely specific occupational. About pneumoconiosis types. The question is not full, so it remains unclear for me. I'll try to answer. There are different approaches to types, typization, to classification of pneumoconiosis. Basing on chemical structure of dust, there are silicosis caused by dust containing free silicon dioxide, silicatosis caused by silicates, and silicatosis are subdivided into different types depending on the dust. So for example, asbestosis caused by asbestos, cementosis caused by cements, and so on. Metalloconiosis caused by metallic dust, and also it's subdivided: aluminosis, siderosis, and so on. Carboconiosis caused by dust containing carbon, for example, anthracosis and others. And hypersensitivity pneumonitis caused by dust with sensibilization potential. There is other typization as well, basing on the type of pneumofibrosis. In this case, it's notable to mention in interstitial fibrosis, nodular, nodal, and so on. There are different classifications. If you still have this question, contact me directly by email. How to prevent spreading any disease in the team? It's again prevention we have discussed briefly. What methods can we use to help reduce occupational disease in people with driving occupation? If I correctly understand that driving occupation means driver, right? What methods can we use? I will generalize the question. What methods can we use to reduce occupational disease? It's a change of type of activity. If driver, for example, is sitting and overstraining his visual analyzer, or maybe he has night shifts and so on, it's important, it's essential to change the type. For example, do something by walking, running, swimming. So change the type of activity, and so on, of course, and follow the duration, best duration of exposure to occupational hazards and so on. Can a patient with occupational disease sue his employer? And what will be his compensation if he dies as a result of cancer as a result of radiation exposure? It significantly depends, this compensation, any of them, significantly depends on the legislation in each certain country. In Ukraine, we have one-time regress compensation, and then for all the lifetime there is some extra. But it depends, and you better consult with lawyer in your region of interest, or contact me directly by email. We'll discuss. Pneumoconiosis, it's not a question, it's just a, I don't know, pneumoconiosis. That's all for your previous questions, and let's continue with the lecture.